and welcome everyone to today's topic, IRC for engineers. This is part one where we'll discuss scope and limitations of the 2021 International Residential Code. This is probably a little bit different topic than you might be used to with SK Ghost seminars, but SK approached us a while back and must have been getting some inquiries through his network. And so we'll do a four-part series here with myself and Sandra, and David will join us Thursday and later on in the month. I do believe Kelly Cobean will also be joining in this series or in the IRC series for some seismic provisions as well. So we will not spend a lot of time on the description. Hopefully you saw that, and that's why you're here today. But just to remind you, this is a four-part series, and today we'll just focus in on the scope and limitations of the IRC, and that will kind of set us up for some of the future topics that we'll be talking about. So we'll concentrate primarily on chapters 1 through 3 today, and our plan is, as we go through this series in the next few weeks, to try and emphasize areas where engineering is required. So hopefully you'll come away today with an understanding of the scope of the IRC, some of the structural options that are available. We will focus also primarily on wood construction, since over 90% of residential structures are wood construction. We won't be delving much into masonry or cold form steel. There are topics that SK does on those subjects that you could potentially pick up that type of information on. We will address foundations and to the extent that masonry structures are part of the foundation system, just maybe touch briefly on some masonry systems. But we'll look at scope and load limits today and identify both prescriptive and engineered solutions. And so this, again, in terms of what you can expect this month, will be the first of four. Thursday we'll be dealing with foundation and framing limits. And then later in the month we'll look at footing and foundation issues, and then some wind examples. And we'll kind of focus our approach on wind, since Kelly Cobean will be looking at the seismic issues a little bit later on. So I believe Maria has done our introductions for us already, but I'll point out to you that our contact information is here. I'm here on the East Coast in Leesburg, Virginia, and Sandra is out on the West Coast in West Richland, Washington. That makes for a very convenient division of topics today. And so in just a second, Sandra will pick up, and we'll come back a little bit later on to talk about seismic limitations in the code. So there's our contact information. Again, since we're kind of looking just at scope and limitations today, we'll start out with chapters 1 and 2, talking about scope, administration, and definitions, and Sandra will lead that discussion. Then we'll jump into chapter 3 and talk about more of the building, planning, and construction provisions of the code, and I'll start us off there until we get up to the seismic limitations, and then Sandra will jump back in. So That's a sense of what you can expect for today, and I will now turn this over to Sandra, and she can pick up here and pick up any details that I may have missed in my first couple of slides there. Sandra?
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to start with the scope. What is the scope of the IRC? What is outside the IRC? And some definitions that help with that scope. Just as sort of a sense of the big picture, there are a lot of different codes that ICC publishes. The ones as engineers that you look at primarily are going to be the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, maybe, and the International Existing Building Code. IBC and IEBC both are focusing on commercial buildings or large multifamily buildings. The IRC stays with our smaller structures.